Well, welcome um, to the last meeting of the year here in 2025. And I know we have Bonnie joining us tonight, and we'll introduce her in a minute from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. Welcome, Bonnie. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm just keeping audio and video off till you're up for me because I have a cold, so you'll hear me coughing when we come online.
okay, no problem.
Do
All
you,
right.
Mark, do you happen to know if Andrew's going to join us?
I don't know. I have not heard from Andrew. I can just look at my email real quick to see if I have received anything, but I have not. Oh, here, let's see. He is having some tech issues at the moment, also while traveling, trying to see if he can use an alternate router to access Zoom. So he is trying to log in, but is also traveling after the travel week.
Yay, Andrew.
All right. Any revisions to the agenda for tonight?
Looks,
Okay.
looks good to me.
Last time we met it was October 28th, so we skipped the month of November. Any revisions or do we approve the October 28th meeting minutes?
No revisions for me.
Okay. All right, we'll approve the minutes from October 28th. All right. Well, the next update is consideration to elect Housing Committee Chairperson. So as everyone knows, this is my last evening as the committee chair. I know Andrew is not on. Do we maybe want to bump that for a moment until
Well, we could nominate him and then we'd be done with this pretty quickly.
we could nominate him?
Smart. Let's wait on it, Mark.
Okay, that's what I thought too.
Virginia.
All right. So we will jump to Bonnie from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. So she had reached out to Connie in response to a front porch forum post that Connie had submitted, looking for folks with ideas and to assist. And Bonnie had reached out. So we were just going to have Bonnie give an introduction for herself and talk a little bit about how the Vermont League of Cities and Towns could potentially help support initiatives like us that we're running. So, Bonnie, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mark. How many of you know what Vermont League of Cities and Towns is and the kinds of things we do? Okay, so would you like the abbreviated dog and pony show tonight?
That would be
That
great.
gives you the quick heads up. So we are a member-owned nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that serves and strengthens Vermont local government. We serve all 247 cities and towns and have another 144 units of municipal government as associate members. That might be regional planning commissions, recreation districts, fire districts. But generally, we're a municipal organization. And what we do is whatever you need us to do. We support you, we provide knowledge, we provide insurance, legal assistance, and just a variety of legal and best practice advice. And if you don't know VLCT, the kind of buckets we have, one is the insurance pool. That's what a lot of municipalities start with at VLCT, where they're insured. The next is the legal assistance I mentioned, where you can do a legal inquiry. You still want your own municipal attorney, but we can provide some quick answers a lot of the time about state law. Then we have a sort of an HR component that does human resources and works with towns on those issues. We have a recruitment service for town administrators and managers. And then finally, the group that I'm a part of is relatively new. We're called Municipal Operations Support Team. And we describe ourselves as we're the technical assistance arm, where the Municipal Assistance Center does legal advice. We do the best practice advice. And within that team, just so that you know, there is Katie Buckley, who's the director. Richmond's worked with her on ARPA assistance and trying to figure out both the financial and public engagement portions of that. We have a government finance specialist, Marguerite Ladd, who works with treasurers and select boards on those types of issues. Kathleen Ramsey is municipal operations specialist. She is all about how to make government work smoothly at a local level. So she'll do everything from the recruitment aspect to just answering day-to-day operational questions. And then my role is the project and funding specialist. So what do? I work with towns to develop their projects from an idea into an implementable project, and then help you find funding along the way to support that. And that was part of what I saw in your funding announcement was you were looking for ideas for funding for some of the actions in the housing strategic plan. So that's what had me knock on your door was I saw the word funding, and it looks like you've got your ideas down, but I'm not sure how far along they are. So that's my quick and dirty VLCT introduction. I wasn't sure, Mark, whether you wanted to talk about funding and the housing plan tonight or do that some other time.
Well, I wonder if maybe are you able to hang out for a little bit this evening, or are you needing
Yes.
to jet out?
No, we telework, first of all, so you need to know I'm at home here in Richmond.
Yeah.
But I scheduled you guys for at least an hour, not
Okay.
understanding where you wanted to be tonight. So
Perfect, because I think we're gonna touch on some of our housing plan items and I think a little bit yeah, in the couple agenda items down, and I wonder if maybe we could fold that into where maybe the Vermont League of Cities and Towns could provide assistance.
sounds great. I'm going to mute myself again, so you don't need to listen to me cough, if that's all right.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining. All right. So on December 1st, there was a water sewer committee meeting that I believe many of you attended. Does anyone want to share an update from what was discussed during the December 1st meeting?
Well, Mairead, unless you want to start, I'll go ahead. So first of all, there was some confusion about what that meeting was supposed to be about. It said to talk about the sewer line expansion into the gateway. Now, I don't know where that came from, that it was going to be about the gateway, but so all of their information that they had and that they were providing was how impossible it was going to be to extend the sewer line out into the gateway. So we got around to talking about possible other extensions of the water and sewer lines and what it would take to change the policy. The commission, Water and Sewer Commission, remains pretty fixed on the fact that they have this policy that doesn't allow anybody else to pay for the water and sewer extensions except for the current customers, not including the current customers. They may not be asked to pay for any extensions. It will only be paid for by the new customers who are served. So that was one thing. I will get to the most remarkable thing about it, as far as I'm concerned, which was in the discussion, it came out that the superintendent of the Water Resources Department mentioned that the pump that pumped the septic contents from the south side of the river to the treatment plant, which is on the north side of the river, was on its last legs. It was very old. It serves 100 customers, or it can serve, its potential is for 100 customers. And they felt they were going to upgrade it because it was advised to them by their engineers that they should put in a pump that served 600 customers, because the engineer told them that there were 600 possible house sites that could be served by it on the south side of the river. First of all, I find that incredible, and I would like to know where they are. I think we really need to get in touch with these people. And secondly, they had no plan for how they were going to get people to hook onto the system. So, the worst case scenario that I would see evolving is that they forced, if you like, the current customers to pay for a pump that now serves 600 houses. And all of those new houses that are being built one by one put in wells and septic systems and never want to join the system. I was incredulous. Like, you don't have a plan. You have to have a plan if you're going to think that there are going to be 600 new houses on the south side of the river and that they're all going to hook up to this system. If you don't have a plan, this is not going to happen. So anyway, my takeaway was we need to find out more about this. I mean, who told them that there were 600 house sites? Where are they? I don't know. The Planning Commission doesn't know where these are. Where are the sites? And what's the plan for making sure that those new houses, as they're built, hook up to this system with the new pump? So that was kind of what I was thinking about pretty much the whole rest of this meeting, is that you got to have a plan, man. If you don't have a plan, it just won't happen. So that was my takeaway. We talked a little bit about, they have a lot on their plate. They have a lot to do day to day. But planning for the future doesn't seem to be on the table. So that's where I think we need to work. And, I definitely want to dig in more about this south side of the river situation. So anyway, that's my story.
Was it your take, Virginia, that I guess I thought that the water treatment facility as a whole needed more work done, that it wasn't just the pump, but maybe I misunderstood or misheard that.
No, they have a lot of things that need upgrading to the tune of, the town plan steering committee has been trying to put something in the town plan about this water and sewer situation. And in their talking to the superintendent of the Water Resources Department, it sounded like it was going to be $20 million to do all the work that really needed to be done to this old plant, which had been built for 2 creameries. So it was way oversized for the number of customers that we have now. The only thing we hear about how many more customers it can serve is sort of anecdotal. And they still didn't give us any firm numbers that related to the number of homes that it could serve. They talk a little bit about, well, it has the capacity for another XDX million gallons or whatever, which doesn't mean anything to us. We don't know how many homes that serves. So they're up against a lot of expenses. And, what I tried to point out to them is, if you don't do anything to have a plan about how to get more customers on this system, the current number of customers in the village are condemned always to pay for everything that needs to be done. I was hoping that that would make an impression on them and they would say, oh yeah, that's a problem. But, it's like, this is the way it's always been, and we're just going to figure out how to get the customers to pay for $20 million of repair and put in a big pump. And anyway.
Yeah, I probably just haven't so little context that I heard it a little bit more optimistically. I sort of heard that they were, a little bit maybe disoriented by what we were bringing to them, but open to, continuing the conversation and also sharing more with us about, potential plans that they have. Am I frozen?
Nope. You're good.
I'm going to pause because I think I'm frozen.
Oh, now you're frozen. Yes, Connie.
Hi, I'm
Sorry
sorry.
about the background music. No, Mairead, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry. I
can
just
hear
got,
you.
the only place that's private is, has not great service. So let me try from this room. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, it sounds like, we've got some next steps in terms of like meeting with folks again at the Water Sewer Commission. I'm sure Virginia was going to get to that. But I just wanted to offer if there's any sort of like groundwork in the meantime in terms of reaching out to the superintendent, and or the chair of the commission, or is it Bard also seemed very knowledgeable about a lot of these things. I'd be happy to sort of do some of that groundwork if that's helpful.
Yeah, well, they did, Morgan Walliver, who's the chair, he lives in the village. He's newish at it, but I think he's the one who's kind of interested in it. I think Bard has been around for so long that he's sick of this conversation, frankly. But anyway, he suggested that we meet like every third meeting with the Water and Sewer Commission to talk about ideas. Well, I mean, that seemed a little extreme to me. I'm not sure we'd have something to talk about every third meeting because they meet every other week. And they have all these other things to do, So, but he did seem open to continuing the conversation, and so we should probably respond to him saying,
Right.
Thank you for being really open about meeting. I don't know about every third meeting, but and I don't know if we'll have anything to offer at our next meeting exactly.
Right. I think that the superintendent had said he could get together some facts and data, that we were interested in. So, I'm happy to reach out to him after first confirming with you, Virginia, what all we want, just to sort of like keep the conversation moving so that, at the next meeting, it is productive and, we're sort of all having the same conversation as opposed to,
Right.
talking a little bit past one another, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the superintendent, like many other, or whoever is the head of a working department in Richmond, is got a full-time job doing the job, know? So planning and writing reports and getting facts and figures, it's like Pete at the highway department, they're just really too busy to do that kind of stuff. So we got to take it slowly, I think, and that's fine. I mean, it's going to be slow for us. It's the 30-year plan, as Andrew likes to say. So, yeah. So anyway, Connie, I think you were going to say something. She's unmuting.
On your phone.
Hold on a second.
Oh, we can hear you.
That's good. No audio.
Okay,
That's
now can you hear me?
Yep, we can. We can hear you. We could hear you.
It'll be nice to get Andrew's comments about this meeting too. So
I got it. This is a confusing process where the phone is, the controls on the phone are different than the controls on the window for the phone's Zoom. So I think I've got to figure it out. I'm sorry.
no problem.
Virginia or anyone, do you all happen to know, like, who is the, I'm going to say, owner of the policy about who has to pay for new extension lines or hookups or whatever? Is it like the Water Commission is its own independent entity, or does the select board govern, as it does, for example, other departments, what the policy is? Who's the owner here?
Well, I think the select board is ultimately the owner of this policy. It's on the select board's page listed under water and sewer ordinances. I think it's 1992 this ordinance was passed, and I am assuming that it was passed by the select board. But maybe it's the Water and Sewer Commission. I mean, the Water and Sewer Commission has several people from the select board on it also, so there's an overlap there. But you could go to look at the policy on the select board page.
Okay, the reason I ask is sometimes there's I worked in public health and healthcare administration for a long time. That's heavily governed by policies. And a lot of time policies just become wallpaper, like this is the way our house looks. We can't do anything about it. And, actually that's not true. You can tear it all down and put up new wallpaper or paint it or something like that. So I'm not trying to suggest that it's a competition or a contest, but it's something worth exploring, that if there's a policy and the superintendent is like, no, that's the policy, to me, as someone who is constantly in the process of changing policies in the field that I worked in, is like, oh, that's so interesting. Let's find out more about that policy and how it got, not just how it got created, but who governs it and under what conditions it can change, because it sounds patently ridiculous. And I think select board members are interested in long-term growth, and not growth necessarily, but sustainment of the town and how it meets its goals, like the ones in the town plan. So a policy is just an agreement, and it can be changed as long as you understand what the rules are and the people who own that change process are in agreement.
Yeah. Well, I think the Water and Sewer Commission and the Select Board would have to be in agreement about it. And the problem has always been, over the last 30 years that I've been involved with any part of this, is that there's a conflict between the townspeople who live outside the village and the people on the water and sewer system. The townspeople have always resisted paying for any extension of the water and sewer lines. The people who live in the village feel this is unfair, and they have always resisted paying for any part of the extension of the water and sewer lines for other people's benefit, the new people who come. So everyone really feels that it's not fair. So, we would love to find some other sources of funds here, Bonnie. I'm talking to you, but some other kind of funds. And because Richmond doesn't have any areas where big developers can come and put 40-unit buildings, 400 apartments, like in South Burlington, you can, if you're a building developer, you can build a building that has 400 apartments. That's 400 new customers. We don't have land like that that's anywhere near the water and sewer system, if anywhere, where developers want to come and put up 400 apartments to provide all of that revenue. So this is why it's a conundrum. I mean, it's a problem, and I'm not suggesting that it's easy to solve and that we can just change the policy, because the village people are not going to want to change the policy, and the townspeople are not going to want to change the policy. The townspeople were brought in to a small extent to the system when the new water tower was built up there on the Jericho Road, because the water to put out the fires in their houses out in the non-village areas, those fire pumper trucks fill up with water from that water tower. So it was convincing enough that it was fair that everybody in the town pays a small amount for the fire water, because the tower was made big enough to hold enough water to put out fires. Everybody benefits. We have never, including efforts that I have made over the years, been able to convince people that it is a benefit if you live out in the outer parts of the town it's a benefit to you that the schools get water, that the town center gets water, that the village restaurants get water. You know, I mean, we wouldn't have restaurants in the village if there wasn't water and sewer service. So why is that not a benefit? I have never been, and no one has been persuasive enough to make everybody be on that same page. The people who live outside, like us, you know, complain that they have to pay for new wells. They have to pay for new septic systems. We just had a new well put in. It was $35,000. Well, you know, that's a real thing. That's a real expense. They don't want to pay for anything else related to the water and sewer system. So it is a knotty problem. It is a difficult problem. And what would be good is to discuss it more, you know, and to talk to everybody who's involved, because otherwise everybody in the village is condemned always to paying for $20 million repairs on this aging plant. So it doesn't look good for anybody if there aren't more customers brought into the system.
So this might be a sidebar that I should have with Virginia or Connie or someone afterwards, but I guess I'm just confused because it looks like the Gateway Extension project was like approved and had like buy-in from the entire town for many, 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 many years. And then somehow was just sort of stopped, but like ultimately getting people's buy-in wasn't the biggest hurdle. There was something else that happened. Maybe it was the bond vote ultimately once you started talking dollars.
Yeah,
But
well, I mean,
it was approved and it was sort of going forward for years.
It's a long story, a saga, and originally the idea was that we would take the water and wastewater system out to Riverview Commons, the mobile home park, right? 160 units plus more that we would like to have them build out there. They have room. Apparently at one time that idea was suggested by the mobile home park and was turned down by the town. Peter Brown, he's never forgiven us or forgotten about that. He built his own septic system. He now wants no part of that. Okay, so that means we don't have all those users out there. That means that the water and sewer extension would go to Governor Peck Road, possibly involving the people on Governor Peck Road, along with the one side of the gateway that can be built on. A relatively limited number of homes. So what was approved was that the district expanded to cover that area, which is the first step. The lines were never approved, the water and sewer lines, just that the district be expanded to encompass that area. Everybody was fine with that. It had no real implications. So they were good. People voted for it. Then it came down to the question of extending the lines. In the meantime, the people along there, like the mobile station, had built their own septic system.
Okay.
The dog boarding place had built its own septic system. The people on Governor Peck Road were really opposed to the whole thing. That left 8 customers on the gateway to pay for this multi-million-dollar set of pipes. So it did come down, as you suggested, to the money. And there were some other complications that I won't bother to go into because that would be another hour conversations, but a grant was obtained for part of it that had to be given back, you know.
Yeah.
People just
like there was a lot of delay, and then people started divesting and building their own thing. But at one point there was buy-in. Okay.
Well, there was theoretical buy-in. I mean, it has always seemed like a good idea. And there's a stub of the lines at the schools that could come down, but there's a problem there. There might be leaks. The school doesn't care. You know, the town cares. That's a mess. There are stubs going out of the village along Route 2. That could be extended, but it's all very expensive. And only one side of the gateway can be developed. That's a problem. The other side is all floodplain, so it limits the number of houses that can go in. Plus, there's the Richmond Land Trust property and the cemetery, which are big properties right at the beginning that don't really need any water and sewer. So, the Gateway kind of looks like the least now appealing place to
Yeah.
be taking water and sewer, even though we'd still like to get it to the new mobile homes, if there ever are any.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'd like to move on in the agenda this evening, but
I'm just curious, Virginia, what did you mean by at the new mobile home?
So
And you
there's
said
room at Riverview Commons to have some new lots made.
Oh, okay.
And
They don't
one of
exist
the
yet.
housing committee goals is to, increase affordable housing. So this is an approachable avenue. We need to be building a relationship with the owner of the park and, trying to figure out what could be done to increase the number of mobile homes in the park. It's a nice park, so.
But it hasn't happened yet, right?
No, it hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
And
Okay. All right. Thanks. Sorry, Mark. I just wanted to make sure I understood. So is there a next step to this, the Water Sewer Committee meeting before we move on? Like, Mairead is interested in doing perhaps some more follow-up with the Superintendent of Water Resources. And like, I could write a thank you note to Morgan Wolliver and say, thank you for inviting us. But do we want to ask for another meeting with him in, like, say, not maybe 6 weeks, but maybe 3 months?
well, I mean, I think Mairead's idea is good, that we keep in touch, that we write to them and say, thank you for having us. And the people who went to the meeting maybe would be better to do this and say that, we're very interested to reiterate our feeling that this is necessary. And I would like to put in a paragraph about this pump on the south side and the 600 houses. And can we have that data? And whose idea is it that we have 600 house sites?
That was definitely one of my things that we want more information about, is this whole 600. I didn't have the level of nuanced thinking that you did around it, but I was also scratching my head about that. So I can send you. Yeah. So I think that's a good action item, that I could just send a draft email to Virginia and Andrew, or just one of or the other, and have you okay it, and then I'm fine to reach out, unless Virginia or Andrew wants to do that, just to sort of keep it all going.
Yeah, and we could suggest another meeting, which would perhaps prompt them to do this thing. Maybe we could talk about it at our next meeting in April or something, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So who was writing a thank you note with these items that are in there? Right. Okay. Perfect. Do you have a quick update on the CHIP meeting you attended, Mairead?
I can.
Or listen to, shall we say?
Yeah, I can add a little bit of my 2 cents. I don't want to confuse the issue. Connie will probably have a much better summary, but attended that meeting by the CCRPC. My biggest takeaway is there was a lot of sort of vague generalities, and they promised that there would be more in-depth guidance and additional webinar educational series to get into the nuts and bolts of how this works for municipalities who are serious about trying to tap into CHIP. But I think the high level overview is this could be the CHIP program could provide a significant benefit to any town that is ready to do infrastructure projects and sort of has a developer at the ready who's working with the town on developing new housing pretty immediately after the infrastructure project.
So it would take, we have somebody that wants to build XYZ housing units, but they need a certain road or water sewer or something to make that possible.
Right. And I don't, the project doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be, there has to be housing development that occurs as a result of that project unless it's, and I think you have to prove the as a result piece unless it's an actual affordable housing development. But it was my sense that, that it, you sort of have to have that collaboration exist. Like you can't attempt to do your water, try to get your water and sewer line created with the hopes that like a developer is going to come down the pike and hop on board. It's sort of, you have that, I think part of the application process, it sounded like, was going in with a developer and potentially another like financial or other sponsor if you need one, with a plan for the housing that's going to occur as a result. But
yeah, and I'm glad to see Bonnie's chat, because my first exposure to knowing anything about it, I didn't go to the meeting, but was that we can't possibly manage this in Richmond. We don't have enough staff. They're already, we have such a tiny staff that does any kind of work like this that we couldn't possibly do it. So I'm glad to see that there's help out there to do it and to even know how to do it. And, seems that gonna come first.
Totally. Yeah. And Bonnie, I appreciate you sharing that. I was going to share that with the group as well. I just saw that this week that they had scheduled some additional follow-up webinars that I think will get into the nuts and bolts.
Does VLCT offer any support to help manage a project like this? Or would this be, you say you offered training to municipalities, but maybe not the management of?
Right. We're developing tools and resources, holding webinars, trying to take municipalities through the steps. And then part of that grant is leading a cohort of municipalities. So I'll say 10 for now through the actual process. We won't do the work for you, but you can hire someone like your regional development corporation, your regional planning commissioner, or a project manager to do it. That still takes some staff capacity to help oversee that, but the staff don't have to do all the work. Does that make sense? I will say it's not a grant, but similar to a grant, staff is never relieved of responsibility, no matter how many volunteers help out on a project. It's a finance program, right? So you're not building the housing, but you are doing the infrastructure improvements and have to be part of the financing program, whether the developer finances it and you pay back through the tax. Are you guys familiar with tax? Do you know what I mean when I say tax increment financing? Property's worth $5 today. In 20 years, when the project's fully paid, it'll be worth $100. The difference between 100 and 5, that value, that increase in the taxable value of the property is used to pay down the debt. That happens for the infrastructure. There's a little more to it than that, but that's the basic concept. So essentially, I describe it as the municipality is dedicating a portion of its future tax revenue to pay down the debt associated with the infrastructure. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I don't know if we have a project in mind, right? That
right.
I think that's our biggest hurdle, is not having a project unless there was something along the buttermilk.
Right.
Right. You would need to recruit and work with developers, whether they're affordable housing developers or just general private developers. You would, they're the housing constructors. That's who you would have to attract.
Yeah. Okay.
That we have a developer who's been actively trying to increase the number of units on the Jelena Court Buttermilk property means to me that there is an opportunity to work with someone. I know that that's a complicated process and we don't have to go through that history, although we've been aware, the Housing Committee has been watching it develop, especially with oversight of the Planning Commission. But the idea is I think the Housing Committee's perspective is get ready so that when an opportunity comes, you know what to do and how to help move it forward. That doesn't mean that we can apply for something without the developer being ready and all the rest of it. But it seems like we could continue to talk to people in the town about the opportunities and where they could lead, find those folks who are saying, yeah, I've got an idea of what I want to develop. And there's also a consultant. Well, there's at least one that was on the TIP webinar that was knowledgeable and talked a lot about what the process was like and what it meant. So there's clearly folks who obviously would make money by helping us do this. But if our goal is housing and we don't have the knowledge and we don't have the staff, then it seems that that's something we could figure out how to get next, is how do we get ready? Not how do we do it, but how do we get ready to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's part of our strategic plan items, right? Is laying that groundwork. Okay. Any next steps on CHIP that you feel the committee should do at the moment?
I mean,
Immediate.
attending those 3 webinars, I have them on my calendar, but I'm sure they'll be recorded as well, I think. If anyone else wants to attend as well.
I don't have them on my calendar, but I think that's why Bonnie put that link in the chat. That's where they are. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
I can certainly look at that. I learned a lot from the first one, but it doesn't make me smart enough to know what to do. So, I'll look at that. Thanks for posting that, Bonnie. I appreciate it. So I guess are they all in January? It looks like they are. There's 3 scheduled webinars in January. So maybe if not January, then February, we could talk about this again then.
That's a good idea.
Okay, thanks, Mairead. I'll mute again because I know it's noisy.
Okay, great. Well, let's move to the next agenda item. So we have talked about the strategic plan for housing. A month and a half ago, we presented that to the select board. Elements of it are put into our town plan. And last meeting, we had talked about just some like rough dates that we thought and prioritization that we thought the committee could work on based on what we want to deliver those action items. So in the intervening month or so, I took that rough plan and I put it into just really a simple spreadsheet and into a kind of a planner for the committee to take on and help organize and prioritize the things that we want to work on. Next. So that was included in the packet, but I can share my screen here to show the live document. And if you can see that, it's a Word document here. And essentially, the housing plan that we had, strategic plan that we had these headlines. We had our zoning recommendations. We had our funding affordable housing projects. Maybe it's a little bit bigger. So these bold titles I used to put into the category that we have here. So around funding projects, zoning recommendations, etc. And then I took in each category, there were some additional action items. So I took those and had the activities broken out here. And then basically from that, I got as far as putting in the planned start year so that we could help organize. I mean, 25 is rapidly coming to a close here. 26, then we had some items that maybe you're pushing out to 28 and or a to be determined. So the thought at least the thought I had was after after I'm departed here from the committee, giving you just some type of framework to be able to help organize thoughts and activities and what the committee should work on next. Now, I did put some of these items like around the zoning recommendations. I think based on our discussion, the owner would be more the planning commission rather than the housing committee. However, I think still the housing committee has a role to play to, check in on forward progress here, right? So not everything would necessarily be assigned to directly to the housing committee. Any questions on that? Is that helpful?
I think it's really helpful.
I agree. It's also a little overwhelming, just a bit, but it certainly gives us stuff to do for 8 years, let's just say, for the next housing plan, town plan, I mean. But I think it covers everything that was in the plan. So thank you for creating this, Marsh. This is quite a gift.
And then Bonnie, just one item that I don't know if the Vermont League of Cities and Towns has partnered with municipalities on, or if there's a roadmap or a how-to guide on like creating a trust fund, a housing trust fund, if that's something that you've supported municipalities on in the past. I'd be curious to hear.
I've only been with VLCT about 3 years. I have not heard it during that time, but I can ask our attorneys if they've done that. The Vermont Housing Finance Agency, they have the Housing Trust Fund on their toolkit, if you haven't seen it. I don't recall offhand if they had a how-to, but I'm looking real quick. And I can look for that while you keep going. If you want. It's housingdata.org.
Yeah, and I think, we had talked, obviously we talked this evening on about water sewer extensions, and obviously one of the roadblocks that we've run into is, how to fund that. And then I think is anything else funding wise, um, I don't know if from your viewpoint, have there been are there other opportunities for municipalities to step in to help support housing projects from a funding standpoint that maybe we haven't looked at before?
Municipalities have done that in a variety of ways, and I'll put in the chat when I'm done talking here. We just published online, what can municipalities do to enable housing in their community? We had a webinar about that, but we also used some of the housingdata.org information plus things developers and communities have done in the past few years. So the primary things municipalities do, the most important thing they do is have community conversations. And they might have those community conversations for 3 or 5 years before trying to do anything else, so that there is not just verbal support for housing, kind of the things you guys have mentioned about water and sewer, but that there's actually support to do the things you need to do, whether that's change zoning or extend infrastructure. But those community conversations, what I usually tell communities is there are 12 people in your community that can, 12 to 20, but usually it's 12 to 15, who can change the decision made in the community. They are the informal leaders. They may not be the select board members or planning commission members or a municipal official, but they're informal leaders in their community whose opinions other people truly respect, and they're usually different pieces of the community. And it's those 12 you need to convince, because those 12 will convince everyone else. So you speak to their points. You still need to have conversations with the full community, but you can probably tell me who folks are who typically weigh in on issues. They may be the opinion makers, they may not, but you probably know who these 12 to 15 people are. So what do municipalities do? They carry these conversations. They build support for their village center for doing the type of improvements. Sometimes they buy land or have their own land, and they issue requests for development proposals, frankly, to try and turn those parcels into housing. They partner with affordable housing, so they're the lead on grants. And actually, it's even more than affordable housing now. There are some for-profit things where municipalities have come in and been the front on grants that for-profit agencies or businesses have pursued. I'm trying to think of what the other zoning, obviously. So there's a variety of things municipalities can do. It really comes down to what do you want to see in your community?
Yeah.
And do you have community consensus on that?
Well, I know Connie's put together in part of the strategic plan, the piece on community development, right? And outreach and how to connect with folks in our community. So it's in the plan.
Right.
Sure. But yeah, those resources I think would be helpful. Great.
The one I'm putting in, I just put in there, that's the actions, but it might say housing trust. I don't even know if it says housing trust. But it doesn't necessarily link you to that. We started with the toolkit that BHFA has and didn't want to repeat most of the things they have in there. I don't see housing trust on there. It just says create a housing trust fund. Okay. But one thing they have on their site are the municipalities in Vermont who have housing committees that they know about. So you guys are on there as the Richmond Housing Committee.
Perfect. Any other questions on what I showed there? Any other questions for Bonnie on funding, financing? I guess, Bonnie, do you have maybe a question for you? Do you have any thoughts on how you could be involved in this discussion with the Richmond Housing Committee, knowing that not only are you from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, but a Richmond resident as well. So I'm assuming you have maybe a stake in how you see Richmond developing and changing in the future.
I have to separate those two roles. I can play one or the other, but generally not both, just as a conflict of interest, right? I can't bring my personal part to the work piece, just to let you know. I'm less familiar with the work you've done, but I would really emphasize what we've seen across the state is that community engagement piece. And if you don't know about, look up their group. I just saw an email come through. It was for developers. Oh, it's a group called Incremental Development. And Rockingham used this really effectively to build support for housing and other types of small scale projects for their community. The webinar we just hosted, John Dunbar, he's a select board member and a planning commissioner in Rockingham. And he and his brother are small scale developers. And they started by setting up this working group of community conversations about incremental development. So he would be a great person to chat with. But I know that the state is holding, sorry, I just got the email today and I read it, but it's focused at developers. The Homes for All, part of their Homes for All program. They're doing a developer training about incremental development. But John and his brother, well, John and the group that they formed, which includes more than just developers. It's a pretty wide ranging group that includes bankers and others. They basically ran a campaign in Rockingham for a few years right at the start of the pandemic about small scale development and what it looked like. And part of their, certainly large developers can bring a lot of housing to a community at once. A lot of times that will get resistance from small communities. And so we tell people, don't forget that a duplex or a quadruplex at a time gets you a lot of housing over time. And that's what they worked with in their community, is somewhere between 2 and 24 units of housing. And then they did other types of small scale development projects that fostered community buy-in. So I can send you that afterwards. But the group is called the Incremental Development Alliance. If you look at their webpage, you'll get a sense. They're member-based. It's, again, a national group. They're member-based, so you'd have to join. But I think talking to John and his team down there, that you can get a much better sense of what that kind of work is. It kind of
Very
matches
cool.
a lot of the things you've talked about.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time tonight. I know it's late, so you're welcome to drop unless anyone else had any questions for Bonnie.
As you move there, I looked through the housing strategic plan just to let you know and tried to jot down where I thought you could leverage outside funding. Many of the things you're talking about are zoning. So you're really talking municipal planning grants or working through CCRPC and their unified work plan when they put out that call for projects. In other cases, you could, I'm looking through real quick where I jotted it down. There were a few places you may be able to leverage something else, but that's really related to the community outreach portion and running a community campaign. And then water and sewer, if you were doing an expansion project or a planning project for water and sewer, my guess is your water and sewer commission knows where to go for that. But if they don't, there's maybe 7 to 9 sources that everybody uses.
I have a question for Bonnie before she leaves. Is it helpful to us to, like that spreadsheet that Mark was sharing with us, if we annotated that with the different kinds of resources that are available, that's just to kind of create like an inventory of here are the sources for the different kinds of, I think, 11 projects that's on that spreadsheet, might kind of help keep us organized around where to look for the knowledge and the support needed to carry any one of these ideas out. Is that something that you can help us with, Bonnie?
I can. I downloaded your spreadsheet and started a column called Funding Opportunities when I saw the spreadsheet next to the agenda. It sounds like you're talking about other kinds of resources as well. I can do what I can there. CCRPC might be a good source as well for that. Taylor and his crew being able to fill that in based on what they're aware of. Because most of this it's not all zoning, but like developing a template letter and guidelines for a town manager, he might be aware of somebody else in the region who's already has something like that, so you don't have to start from scratch. Or you can, not everyone appreciates when I use the letters AI, but if you have letters you've written, I would take out any kind of personally identifying information or names, even the town's name, our town, but feed it into AI and say, draft us, here's 3 examples of letters we've written, draft us a letter. Use the tools that are out there. It's not thinking for you, it's taking what you've already done and more rapidly analyzing it and creating that template for you. So use those kinds of tools as well. But I will finish with the funding opportunity one and send that to Mark if that's an appropriate spot. But what I have now is a brief description. So as you work through those items, if there's more information, sometimes that can uncover new sources of information or of funding.
Okay. That's great.
I think that would be really helpful, Bonnie. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Could you also copy me when you send that to Mark? I think you have my email as well.
I do.
Great. Good. I think this is a small but mighty committee that needs to choose what to focus on, because we can't do it all at once, but we at least need to know what the resources are that could support our work. That might be part of making a decision.
Well,
So,
yeah.
Mark, I did have one thing that I wanted to say before we leave this topic about the strategic housing plan.
Yep.
Something that we could do as a committee right now is to support the new town plan. Because the town plan supports this work. You know, there are action items about supporting the housing committee, about supporting the strategic housing plan, about knowing about it. So if we would like to continue to generate support for this committee, that's a relatively new committee. I mean, 5 years or something we've been around. But so if you have any opportunities, if anybody has any opportunities to support the passage of this town plan, whether it's at voting on town meeting day or if it gets postponed beyond that, then I think it would be well, because it speaks well about our housing needs and, does include the strategic housing plan and suggests that people should support the strategic housing plan, talks to the select board about continuing to support the housing committee. So if you can support the plan, that would be great.
Is there a specific next step or next hurdle that the plan needs to go through? Like, is it in front of the select board at some point, or is the next
Yeah,
step town meeting day?
January 5th, there's a hearing on the plan January 5th. And then there's a second hearing on January 21st if we are to be able to get it onto the warning for town meeting on March 3rd. So, if we can have, I don't know who is necessarily opposed to it. In this, there are some pieces that people are opposed to, but anyway, in terms of the housing piece, having support there is always a good idea. Having someone to speak about how this is what we need to promote our housing goals and blah, blah, blah. So January 5th and January 21st, select board hearings.
All right. So the last 2 items is to talk about.
Sorry, Mark, it takes me like 30 seconds to find my mute button. Virginia, the meeting, was it on January 21st that the decision is made to move to the ballot? Did I capture that correctly?
Yeah, well, the select board is required to have 2 public hearings. And what's going to happen on the 5th is we hope that they're going to approve the second draft into the final draft by adding the amendments that have come in by way of public comment in the last month. We've left the public comment period open till the very last minute. So what will happen at the 5th is they need to approve the draft and approve the amendments, which will be made into a final draft, which will be approved for the warning on the 21st. So both of those meetings are kind of important. and they involve approving something. The voters have the final approval, obviously, but the select board will be approving the documents, and then they will be approving putting them on the warning.
And is it the case that the public has a chance to like speak up and say, I support this, I think it's a great idea because, or is it mostly the planning commission explaining what they've done to the select board, and the select board, I mean, like, I know there's always public comments, but when I think of a hearing, I think of people who are going to testify who've been like organized to do that rather than just a general, does anybody have any comment? Which way does it work, do you know?
Well, the public hearings are supposed to be to take public comment. So there have been several opportunities already when the plan has been presented. The Planning Commission's hearings, the presentation hearing on the 19th of whatever it was, November. So we don't plan to really review the whole plan. We will talk about the new amendments that have come in by way of public comment. But I would expect that much of the meeting is public comment, because the select board can take public comment at that meeting and also approve new amendments if they wish. So, you know, if someone comes in and says they really support the housing section, then that'll be great. You know, the select board would like to hear that people like this document. That is how they're going to feel comfortable putting it on the warning, is that there are not a lot of people who come forward and say, I don't like the housing section, I don't like this section, I don't like that section. So if they have a lot of positive feedback, that's going to be the thing that influences them the most to vote the document forward. So
I understand. Thank you for that, Esther. I appreciate it.
All right, I just well, let's talk about obviously Andrew's not joining us this evening, so let's talk about the consideration to elect a housing committee chairperson. I'm not sure if there's an official process here. Before everyone jumped on the phone, we were chatting that it's not the the committee can still function if we don't elect a chairperson this evening. There are some other options around maybe having two co-chair people, or a more rotating chairperson, unless there is somebody that is volunteering to be the chairperson, and we, I guess, vote them in. Is that how that works? I know, Virginia, I look to you because I think you probably had the most experience on a committee here, just in terms of how this process works. But I guess I'll open the floor.
yeah, usually we let people nominate themselves, or if they've prearranged it, to nominate somebody else.
Is anyone nominating themselves?
I cannot be the chair
Marie?
of the committee, by the way. So don't bother to nominate me.
Not nominating Virginia.
Thank you.
Mairead, I'd like to know what your thoughts are.
My thoughts are that there's a lot of moving parts in my life right now, and committing to be the chair, if I weren't wanting to get back to work, you know, in the summer after I've spent a couple of months with our new baby, then I might consider it. But I think I'm ready to not be home, and doing sort of volunteer work, ready to be get back to real work. Plus we're doing a home renovation, so it's going to be a bit of a cluster. So I really want to keep participating, but don't want to let folks down.
When's the baby due?
February
Oh boy.
20 something. Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
wow, that's really
Coming
soon,
right
yeah.
up.
Coming right up.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. That is a time when you don't even get to like brush your hair every day.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, I know. So I suggest that we don't have a housing committee chair for a while. That I mean, I'm not interested in trying to fill two roles. And I often need someone to help me figure out, like, what's a good way to go. So let's just group. I mean, we're not a very big group, so let's just group manage it. And as the clerk, I'll work on the agenda, but don't, I feel like who speaks for the group will depend on what the topic is and what's going on and what happens. We can try it without a chair for a while.
I think that's our option.
Yeah.
I don't see any other options.
Yeah, just there's a lot going on in people's lives, and I see it every day. So I think we can just manage it. And when we get to a place where we feel like we need a chair, then we'll have to identify a chair then. But in the meantime, Mark's given us some really great tools and the benefit of his thoughts and suggestions, and I think that's an incredibly good start. So let's at the end of this meeting, which is coming right up, let's decide on what we want to have, when that meeting let's confirm when that meeting will be. Let's decide what the agenda will be and who's gonna lead each item. And then we'll have our agenda set for the next meeting. And we'll just keep replicating that until we either run out of people or we fix everything and the world is a happy place. So I'm excited.
Okay. Before we get to that, I did want to just spend a moment looking at the our OneNote space, our OneDrive space. Just because I've tried to keep items as organized as I could, right? And want to just let people know my thought process here. So if you can get into the OneDrive, it's really Keith's OneDrive. I think he's created a folder for us. Anything related to the strategic housing plan, I've kept in here. So that includes our planning, the Excel doc that I just shared with the dates, and then I have kind of our strategic plan written out. Here I have the presentation that I gave to the select board here. So, and then these are some of the old drafts that I have. I've tried to mark them as draft or old. But anything housing plan is in here. When we had tier 1B's discussions, those were put in here. There's obviously some other items here, but where was the town plan working folder? So the items that we've compiled for the town plan are all in this folder here. And then I do have a folder at the bottom that was around agendas. So every week or month I had our draft agenda in here, and this is what I kept. So if you want to keep that up, so we have a history of the agendas that we built that are in here. And then there's a bunch of other data in here, studies in here, any of those one pagers that we created, like Connie, when we built the handout that we gave out to folks at last town meeting day. Those are in here. Our committee charge. And then these were the found resources were the things that when we lost our last OneDrive, these were things that I kind of compiled and brought in here from that. So just wanted to kind of like orient folks on what we've been in here, and that a lot of those resources should be kept in here for the future.
Mark, I'm just wondering if there's an alternative location to store this. I'm sure that because it's work with the town, it has to be part of the town system, but like I've worked to get the password from Keith or to get approved, and then I'm able to get on for a little bit, and then the whole process restarts. And I just don't want to keep having to bother Keith to get in. And I don't normally have this much trouble using SharePoint. I'm just not sure why. Maybe it's because I no longer have an Outlook email that I can use for this. I don't know. Um,
I use my Gmail account, and I think that's
yeah,
shared with me is
yeah.
through
I
Gmail.
mean, it worked for me like until July, and then it's just like I just can't get in without being denied and then having to like re-seek access and um yeah, I don't know.
Never gotten dropped off. I've always been able to get in, so I'm not sure. Maybe connect with, with Duncan at some point might be helpful. Rather than Keith.
Okay.
Might just be it. Maybe able to provide some additional support there.
Yeah, Duncan is great. He will be
Okay.
able to help you with this kind of issue.
Okay.
So I
And
don't
maybe
think
just
he's
do
on the
Connie.
call anymore, but
Yeah. I would. I think it's probably the best strategy to figure out how to make this work, only because like we've had Google Drives in the past, but as committee folks come and go, like those
Yeah.
resources, they're just not in they're in our emails, and they're just not
Yeah.
named in a place.
I get it.
so Mairead, and you should take your computer in and sit with Duncan so he can see what's happening on your computer. That's the
Okay.
best way to do that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, so let me know about that. I guess that's the review there. So um so we want to talk about the next meeting? Do we want to talk about the next agenda for the next meeting? We can get started there.
That's a good idea. Am I still on, Mark? You can hear me?
Yep. Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Um, so, so the next meeting is currently scheduled for Tuesday, January 27th from 7 to 8:30. Virginia and Mairead, do those times work for you?
Sorry, I was trying to email Duncan. What day
Go with
did you
that.
say?
Sure. No, not to worry. It's Tuesday, January 27th from 7 to 8:30.
Oops. I actually
Awesome.
booked something
Okay.
that I shouldn't move.
Okay. No, that's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It might be wise to move it a little bit earlier into January anyway, because we are close to February. I'm sorry, but nice to have you here when you're around.
So how about the
um,
20th?
the Tuesday the 20th. On
It's usually the fourth Tuesday, right? So this would be the third Tuesday. That would be the third Tuesday.
yeah, I could do that. Mairead, does the 20th work for you?
Yeah, it does. Oh, and I realized if we were doing a different time, I could totally do the 27th. I just have something in the evening. But if you want to go with earlier in the month, that's
Well, let me write down what the options are and check with Andrew.
okay.
So let's give me a second to do this because I want to get it right when I reach out to him. One is Tuesday, January 27th. What do you mean by earlier? Give me an exact time.
Like if we did an afternoon anytime before 2 p.m. If we were to
Virginia,
have like a
yeah.
midday meeting.
Well, I
Um,
think we'd have to ask
I could,
Andrew. I mean, I think that he has
oh,
regular
yes.
hours.
Yeah, I'm creating a list, Virginia, and then I'll reach out to him. But it has to work for the three of us, or it's not worth doing. So
Yeah.
can you make it work on January 27th before 2 p.m., Virginia?
Um, if necessary, it's not super good for me, but I could probably, it interferes with some other things that I do that I would reschedule. So not great, but possible if it's the only alternative.
Okay, so is there a preferred time of day that does work for you?
This
Or is
time
it like
works well.
oh, I mean, I meant before 2 o'clock on the 27th. Is there a time in the day before 2 o'clock on the 27th that works for you?
Um, no.
Or if not, then no. Okay,
Any
then,
time before 2 o'clock, if that's the way it's going to be, that would be okay. Any time before 2 o'clock.
okay. All right.
Now I'm
Then the
looking
next
at the
date we're looking,
20th. I'm looking at the 20th, and
yeah,
that is the day before the select board's second public hearing. So that doesn't work great for me either, because I might
okay,
need to be troubleshooting or something. I don't know.
okay. So let's,
But possible.
but we're not restricted to Tuesdays necessarily. I mean, the Tuesdays were created with different people's schedules in mind. Or is there in the last 2 weeks of January another day of the week that works for you, Virginia?
Probably Thursdays would be all right. I can't do Wednesdays ever. Monday's not great, but possible. But sometimes I have to go to the select board on Monday, so Thursday, I guess,
Or-
is a day that would work.
Okay, so let's see. I would not be able to do the 29th, but I could do the 22nd. Thursday evenings. Do Thursday evenings work for you, Murray?
Sorry. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so the other option is Thursday. Let me write that differently. Thursday, January 28th. And that's in the evening, Virginia. I'm assuming you were thinking from 7 to 8:30.
What day are you talking?
Thursday, January 28th.
I see.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, the 28th is a Wednesday. I meant the 29th.
yeah, the 29th would be okay. Yep.
And the reason I mentioned a
Oh,
different
sorry.
time, the reason I also
Mhm.
mentioned a different time is I think because Mark was departing, I had proposed that maybe there's a time earlier in the day. We can maybe have that discussion at the next meeting, but the 7 p.m. time is just feeling really tricky for now, and I don't want to have to like get a babysitter every time we have a meeting.
No, that's not reasonable. Virginia, are there earlier times in the day on any day of the week in second 2 weeks of January that work for you? Earlier than 7 o'clock?
So most days of the week are fine earlier for me. They're fine. I mean, I have other things that I do during the day, but they don't have to be done at any specific time. So if there's a time that works best for everybody, that's fine. During the day, I can do it.
Okay, well, you and
Just
Mairead and
not
I are right now
Wednesdays.
everybody. Not
Yeah,
Wednesdays.
no.
Okay. Okay. So let's just pick out 3 dates that possibly could work. No, 2 extra dates. We've got Tuesday, January 27th before 2 p.m. Let's try not Wednesdays. So the 20th during the day. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that's fine.
No, because that was right before that. That's right before the
It's
select
right
board
before
meeting,
the
right?
select board meeting, but you know,
Okay, so let's not do it on the 20th or the 21st. The 22nd.
22nd is fine. Yep, it's good.
Murray, what does your 22nd look like?
That could work for me too.
Okay, so I
And
can
and
ask
if we want to
Andrew.
keep it at 7, just until we talk to Andrew, that's fine.
No, I think the goal was to try and have you not have a babysitter, right?
Yeah, but I just meant going forward, but we can have the like time change conversation with Andrew when he's actually here if that, yeah.
Or you could send out an
Okay.
email, Connie, to Andrew and say, can you ever meet
I
during the
will.
day? Yeah, if that,
Yeah.
then there's no point in
Okay.
talking about these earlier times if he really can't meet during the day ever, right? I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, for some reason I thought his schedule was flexible, maybe because he could meet me for coffee once.
yeah,
With
well,
little
maybe it
notice,
is
so
flexible. It would be good to know that in advance, though, before we do a lot of
totally.
planning.
Yeah.
Okay, and the goal is before 2 p.m. Is that right, Mairead? Possible as a general target?
As a general rule, between 9 and 3 is great. That day is just a different day, a different.
Okay. You will hear more from me by email, and I will try to make it easy, but I have to get in touch with Andrew first. All right, so let's just
Yeah.
do the agenda for next time, and what I think we're going to have is sort of a repeat of somewhat of a repeat, besides the usual things like welcoming an agenda and minutes. What we're going to do is talk about a little bit more about the Water Sewer Committee. Is that fair, Mary? And that you will lead on that one? Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think that Virginia and Andrew are sort of more subject matter experts, but I'll definitely like lead on the conversation that hopefully I've been able to help continue or facilitate. But yeah.
Okay. And in addition to that, we'll maybe have an update on the TIP meeting or TIP webinars. That seems to be our, and I will take the lead on that. And I think the other thing to do is just to, and this is a sort of, we have all this wonderful list of strategic plan items that we've recommended and have been supported. But I think we need to decide what is it that we want to focus on. And I suggest that the committee organizes its thoughts about having one or maybe 2 items that it focuses on, because there aren't that many of us right now, and there's a lot of those items, and we should organize ourselves at least to address them kind of coherently, one at a time, until we can move past it and move to the next one. So I'm going to put prioritizing the strategic plan items.
And then we should probably talk about recruitment. I mean, who's going to write a letter? Who's going to write a front porch forum post? Who's going to try to do any recruitment work? We could talk about that.
I did have a good response to the post that I made a month ago, and I heard from, aside from hearing from Bonnie, which was kind of like a bonus, I heard from Marcy Harding, with a lot of questions for me about the map, and Virginia's been answering all her questions on Front Porch Forum. I've noticed that, and I'm like, awesome, Virginia. You're really good at explaining stuff. And so
She has a lot of questions about the map. Many questions about the map.
Yeah, well, but interest is a good thing, and as she becomes more aware or confident or whatever it is that she needs, she might be willing to help. Anyway, she was very interested in the housing committee and its work, and then wanted to check out what I knew about the map. But I couldn't help her much.
I have tried to
So-
recruit her to the planning commission a number of times, and she is not interested. So
Okay. All right.
we
Well,
would like other people to do the work.
yeah. Well, yeah. We all have things in our lives. You know that.
Yes,
I
I understand.
will. It's on the list, the agenda item. I'm recommending that we don't try to reach out before Christmas to ask anybody to do anything more. That just doesn't work. But after the New Year's, when people are feeling like, oh, our start, maybe we'll get someone who says this is the year I should be part of something like that. So I'd say let's wait until we get there to do that. All right. It's 8:35, so I assume we should stop at this point. But Mark, is there anything else?
I think that's it. I mean, obviously feel free to reach out if you do have questions on
Oh, Laura, you gonna
Or-
feel sad that you said that.
things there. But you know, it's been a pleasure working with you all.
Thank you,
on the
Mark.
committee.
It's been great working with you, Mark. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Thanks for your efforts. It's good.
Yeah. Happy holidays, everybody.
Okay, I'll move
You're
we
all wonderful to
adjourn.
work with.
So
I'm up
we're
with that.
adjourning.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, at
All right.
8:36. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Good night.
Good night. Yep. Bye-bye.
Good night.